Hello and welcome to Love Work Life 60-minute mentor sessions. I hope everyone's fit and well today. And as people start to join the webinar, let's make sure people can hear us. If you can hear us, if you could please just drop a little note into the chat or the question box, just say you could hear us, that'd be very much appreciated. I hope everyone's having a good day. The weather is lovely today on Tuesday. Tomorrow's meant to be absolutely scorching. So I hope we all look forward to a nice bit of sunshine out there. As we start to come out of lockdown, people are now starting to take note very, very clearly of what's actually going on in the marketplace. So as people start to log in, what I want to sort of give you is a bit of feedback on what the REC is seeing with regards to job tracker and what's going on. So at the end of May, they were saying on average through that week, there was 950,000 jobs out in the marketplace. Sorry, at the beginning of May. And at the end of May, it had risen to 963,000. So not a massive increase. However, in the first week of June, as things started to move and lockdown started to be released a little bit, there was 112,000 new jobs registered in that first week in June, which is a 64% increase on the week before. And obviously if the market keeps moving in that way, then we're starting to see a new sort of dawn. We're seeing positive green shoots moving forward. Obviously, if the relaxation of the 2-meter rule starts to come into effect, and there's rumors that will happen today, then again, that will give us a really good opportunity to start the economy again and drive forward. As we said last week, what Paul and I aims now on these webinars is to really start to talk about anecdotal evidence of things that we have done in the past to help people to come out of recession, and things that we think people should be doing now to come out of the lockdown situation that we are in. So we've spent an awful lot of time sort of pulling things together, and we want to look at that. One thing that Paul and I are very sort of open about is how we've sort of run our business. And we've spent the last 3 months really working very hard in the background, not only developing and delivering lots of webinars, but we've worked very hard on the development of our own business and what's going in our business. So everything that you guys have started to do and done, we have been doing it also all the way through. So we understand the situation that everyone's in because we are also doing that. So what I want to do is this week is we want to sort of talk about, what we can start to do now with regards to steering the business beyond recession. And Paul and I looked at that, and we've created 4 topics that we really want to sort of discuss and look at. And the first topic that we want to sort of look at is leadership. And when we start to talk about the topic, what we'll talk about is we'll give you some views of what leadership actually is, and then we'll talk about some real life situations that Paul and I have done with companies, with offices, etc., during recession to help those businesses recover. So Paul, morning, how are you?
Wonderful, thank you, Howard. I mean, beautiful day. Unfortunately, we're all inside. We should really try and get outside, enjoy the sunshine whilst it lasts. This is Britain after all. It doesn't come very often. So I'm really good, thank you. All well and good.
Good. So leadership. Give me your views and simple views as we start to sort of bounce off each other on this, on leadership. What do you think the leadership style should be sort of as we start to sort of move into sort of the increase of business?
Yeah, I mean, look, we are, and we're going to talk about this today, Howard. We're talking about a recessionary climate. We are definitely, as everybody's well aware, heading into a recession. We are in a recession already, and it's going to become evident, I think, in the next 2 to 3 months, once the furlough scheme starts to slow down and the government stop paying as much as they are and expect employers to start contributing, as they've said, will be expected from August onwards. I think we're going to see, and everybody will know this, we're going to see a spike in unemployment. There'll be a rise in the level of redundancies and in the companies that we deal with making or downsizing. And we're going to see that. I think what kind of leadership is required is a good question, because we are expecting, we're hoping that the recession is going to be short and sharp. It will rise, we think, in employment terms next year. And I certainly believe that we're going to see quite an increase in optimism and the economy as we start to get beyond March, April next year, 2021. As we've described it, we think it's going to look a lot like that Nike swoosh. So it's going to be a decline and then a sharp increase. But it's reasonable to assume that really this year is going to be tough. Maybe and hopefully getting slightly easier and better as the year progresses. But we know really and truthfully the next 2 to 3 months is going to be tough. So what kind of leadership are we going to be looking for from you guys and from us and everyone else that we talk to via the REC particularly and our clients? Well, in a way, I think it's, I don't want to say blind optimism because that's probably the wrong phrase, but I do think that we have to exhibit a huge level of optimism and a view that we convey to people around us that life isn't going to be too gloomy. We are going to see an improvement, and yet at the same time, we expect to see it as a challenging environment for the next 6 months. I think the reality is we have to be realistic with our people. We have to make them understand that we're going to have to fight very, very hard in the next 6 to 9 months, but that we can see an end, that we are very optimistic about the future, that our visions, and we'll talk about this, are unrestricted. We still believe that things will improve, that we will achieve what we set out to achieve, that we are of the opinion that things will work out pretty well. I've certainly lots of clients that I'm talking to, my clients at the moment and yours as well, Howard, we've expressed the view, and I think based on reality, that we're actually going to come out of this situation in a stronger place than when we entered. And every one of the people I work with, every business owner I work with, whilst concerned, of course, about the current situation, they are all of them, without exception, optimistic that they will find a better place that will increase their market as time goes on.
I think it's interesting that we talk about optimism, and I think with optimism, all leaders need that positive view of how their business should be run, and they should be providing that positive message constantly down to their staff. And I think when we start to look at sort of things, the anecdotal evidence that we've done, that positive messages, it's the positive messages that start to create the momentum within the business, and it's that adding clarity behind those positive messages that really start to define those leaders that are different and those leaders that are driving for a better future and driving for success rather than just letting it come and letting it happen. And I think the English are very good at letting things just happen and waiting for things to happen or someone to show you the way. I think a leader now has to have that positive outlook, their positive mindset, and really drive that into their business and create that positive sales culture that will drive. I always said during recession that, we've said this all the way through these webinars, there is always money to be had during recession. And I've always said during recession, there shouldn't really be a recession for a recruiter, irrespective of the marketplace. And this one's maybe slightly different. I've always said that there is always opportunity in every sector. There's only recruiters that can't find clients that are buying. So you have to really work hard at finding your buying clients and look at your market. We've gone from being a very candidate-driven market, and we're now going to be back into a client-driven market. So really understanding your client marketplace and understanding what happens within that marketplace is really important.
I mean, Howard, I would say one of the things that everyone listening to us today should really take on board with regard to their own people is that we have to give our guys a sense of security. People react positively where they feel secure. Now, nobody can make a 100% guarantee that any business or any individual is safe in the truest sense. But at the same time, without wishing to sound contradictory, we have to give people the absolute belief that everything is going to be fine, that we are in this together, we're driving forward, that it's going to be fine. But at the same time, I think we as leaders will have to exhibit a great deal of courage, can-do attitude. We need to have this sense, as I said earlier, of optimism. Our vision for the future needs to be very, very clear. We have to win hearts and minds. I mean, we need to get people that are prepared to run through walls for us. And I think in order to achieve that, as leaders, we have to demonstrate those behaviors and values. We have to be prepared to do those same things. This is going to require a real sleeves rolled up mentality from every single person that's running a business right now, and demonstrating that they're going to lead from the front. But I do think this inclusive thing, this sense of getting people drawn in, we're in this together, guys, and getting people really up for it, up for a fight, is really important. And trying to and get people to understand that if we work together and we go for the things we've talked about, the planning we put in place, that it's going to not only be fine, it's going to be great. We're going to win new business. We're going to take business from our competitors. We're going to get more business from our clients. We're going to get exclusivity. We're going to get this. We're going to get that. I think that sense of optimism and positivity is essential when you're leading people, particularly during a difficult and challenging period. And you only have to look at history outside of recruitment, to understand that. We understand, when we talk all the films recently about Winston Churchill, the obvious example, when we went into the Second World War in 1939 and we were on the brink of disaster, he was making positive statements about defeating the enemy. We'll fight them on the beaches, all that kind of stuff, all that rhetoric at a time of a global or world crisis. And I know it's an extreme example, but, to a lesser extent, leading people during a difficult time requires absolute faith that everything is going to be fine.
I think it's an interesting count there, sort of, especially when we talk about the Churchill thing, because I think the big thing that now, when you talked about courage, and I think the big courage of most leaders when we get into this sort of situation is the decisions that they make. And you have to make decisions, and you have to make proper decisions that are based around your business, and sometimes not based around your heart. And sometimes your heart and your head sort of rule what's going on within a business. And when business is good, that's fine if your heart is ruling. But when business is as it is at the moment, making a proper business decision is paramount to moving forward. And I think the other side of this, we've talked about positivity, we've talked about vision for the future, that can-do attitude and open-mindedness. I think what we've also got to remember that everyone is human. It was quite interesting when I started to put the slides together for today's things. This reminded me, the slide that we've got up now, of how lonely sometimes a manager can be, that you seem to face yourself staring at the wall with no one around you trying to help you. I also think managers need to be, and leaders need to have that little bit of humor to get beyond that. And really, as you said, to win the hearts and minds of people, you have to take them along with you. So let's look at some of the anecdotal evidence that we've got, Paul, and things that we've actually done in the past. We've been reciting stories to each other for a number of years.
Yeah.
Too many years that I care to mention. Give us some stories about leadership style that you've done sort of through really hard times.
Yeah, I mean, I can give several examples. Not all through recessions. I can remember being involved with one company that were in, when I got there and I discovered they were in dire straits. They owed a small fortune, which had actually not been disclosed to me during the interview process. That's another story for another day. It'll be in my autobiography, folks. So I'll talk about that another time. But one of the things that I needed to do to try and save the company was to make sure that the people around me were really on side. And we did a lot of things during that time to win hearts and minds. I would say, for example, I did some rebranding. We completely redesigned logos, the website. It was a complete fresh lick of paint. We made the business look and sound and act in an entirely different way. I looked at internal restructuring. I was looking at people working into their strengths, rather than getting them to do things they weren't particularly good at. So we were able to raise spirits by making sure that people were doing jobs that they were suited to, that also benefited our clients, of course. I spent a lot of time talking to people, training and coaching people. I think one of the things you've got to do during a difficult period is to really invest in your staff. And I mean, that's not just talking. I really think that is about genuinely putting in the hard graft of sitting and coaching and training and mentoring. And if you find it difficult to do that internally, or you need to get people with experience and skill sets that you don't have, then you bring in people from the outside to help you to do that. It's really about getting pride into the business, I think. It's looking at your media profile. I was doing a lot of that work back in the Office Angels days. particularly, I was forever on the radio, TV, and all that sort of thing. Obviously, doing it for publicity for the business to try and promote the business, but it had an enormous impact on the morale of people working for the company. They loved the fact that the company was consistently in the newspapers, on the radio, on the TV, not just me, but other people in the business. And they found that absolutely exciting. And they were proud of the fact that they wore that badge, in those days, the Office Angels badge. So it's about getting pride into your business, as I said. And I definitely think, and I've said this repeatedly, that when you are entering a challenging period, you absolutely have to look at your means and your methods of internal communication. Well, I've talked already about media profile, which is external communication, but actually I'd consider that internal comms, how you communicate with your guys, is even more important. So what do you talk to your people about during these periods? How much information can you share with them? In my experience, there were things that I would share, a lot of things I would share with just about everybody. There were some things that I dare not share with some people, notably my own feelings of concern and worry and stress, because I'm a human being, and I felt all of those things, and there were things that I simply didn't feel I could share with the people closest to me because I didn't want to worry them. So, I and the finance guys were well aware of our cash flow predicaments during this particular company that I tried to save, but I didn't share that with everybody around me. Why would I give them sleepless nights? I thought that wasn't necessary. I think to a large extent they knew, but they didn't have to have the exact detail. I've always been proudest in a sense of that company because during a time when I was desperately trying to save the company, we had 70 staff. And believe me, towards the end, when I was looking for a new investor, we didn't even have enough money to pay the staff at the end of the month. During that period, not a single person resigned from the company that I was leading. When, frankly, anybody that would have left at that point could not have been blamed for going because we didn't think we could even pay them at the end of the month. Every single person, 70 people, stayed with the company. And I've always believed that it was a lot to do with the humor we injected into the company and to a large extent, the level of communication that we had with people. We were in it together. Everybody, linked arms. We worked incredibly hard, ridiculously long hours, and we saved the company together. And I think that for me, it was always my proudest moment was that period of trying to save a business and not losing anybody during that time.
I think it's quite interesting. One of my sort of career highlights, let's call it, was when you first suddenly realized that, managing through, boom times is relatively easy. It's when things start to go wrong that you've got to really sort of knuckle down and, as you said there, roll your sleeves up. I remember sort of when I was brought into Computer People, dot-com bubble had just burst, well and truly flooding the market with lots of negativity and what was going on. And I took over an office in Leeds, and I was basically told, you need to sort this office out. This is your first big challenge as a manager. We want to see how you went. And I walked in, I've got, a team of 8 in the office. I've got 2 really big billers, both billing over £500,000, both vying for top dog, weren't particularly very happy that I came in to manage them and to drive them from there. So I instantly decided, to give you an idea how bad these 2 were, I couldn't even sit them together. They were too busy fighting with each other, proper cat and dog fight. So I had to sit in between them to try calm things down. And so what I did was I took the opportunity to spend time with them in my first 6 weeks, and I started to talk to them about the ideas that I was having, the projects that we should be delivering on, and start to pull together a roadmap and a plan. And what I was doing was having these conversations with them on a separate basis. And then after 6 weeks, I brought them together and said, right, okay, this is the plan. This is the vision for the future I've got for this office. This is what I want the office to be doing. And this is your parts that I want you to play in it. And because I've been feeding them with different parts of information, they started adding to the plan exactly where I wanted them to be. So I got them to a point where I said, right, this is what we need to deliver on. This is how we're going to do it. And this is what we're going to do. I got them to really sign up and say, this is where we go. Now, I knew from the investigations that I'd started to do that at that time, Leeds office was the worst performing office in the UK in the CP brand. And my goal was to say, right, we need to become the top performing office within a very short period of time by profit per head. Knowing full well that one of the ladies that I was talking about was skimming on the commission scheme, not doing things that she should be doing, etc., etc., was basically a little bit of sort of untoward business going on. So I set them on their way, and what I started to see was one person absolutely blossom. She talked about optimism. She talked about what she was doing. Her team that she was working was well underneath her. They were pushing forward with them, and they were driving into the marketplace. The other person viewed it in a completely different way, where we always talked about the team, and we always said there was no I in team. And the other lady said, yes, but there is an I in win, and I want to win. And it was all about her. And I changed it and said, yes, there is an I in win, and the I should be inclusive. It should be about inclusivity of the team. And what was really interesting, after 12 weeks into the business, I went to my boss at the time and said, okay, here's my first big managerial decision. And he said, okay, what's your decision? I said, I'm going to manage this lady out of the business. She's billing £500,000. She's got a massive turnover problem with her staff. She's not on board with what's going on. We all need to be working really hard. She's not. And on top of that, she's also defrauding the commissions plan and the way it's going. And he went, my God, if you do that, that is the biggest call I've ever seen. Did it. Removed her from the business. 14 months later, the Leeds office was the biggest billing office per head in the UK in computer people. And it sort of said to me that if you take the bad apples out of your business in times of crisis, where you think they're the ones that may bring you forward, all of a sudden you release the pressure on everybody else, and the pressure that she was putting on everybody else was enormous, and you can suddenly see those people blossom. The £500,000 I was losing, I gained in many more fold from the people that she was blocking from doing business, because they suddenly increased their business by 100% each. So I had a team of 8 all of a sudden doing 100% more rather than one person. So making those hard decisions are really important, which sort of leads us on to the next sort of process, Paul, which is about that people strategy. Let's talk a little bit about people strategy and what we should be doing with people strategy.
Yeah, of course. And by the way, interesting how that you use Leeds as the example, as you constantly tell me Yorkshire is God's own country. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So let's talk about people strategy. I think we've talked about how courageous you have to be as a leader coming back into work very soon. And I think, we're now hearing, certainly some of my clients are now heading back into the office. I'm going to be going up to a few offices this week, which is good news. First time I've been out and about since this began. So I think, as Howard said at the top of this conversation, there's already signs things are beginning slowly to return. Long way to go, but certainly an improvement over the last 13, 14 weeks. What kind of people are we going to want in our business? To use the quote, we want people made of the right stuff. So guys, that when things get really tough, as the old adage goes, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And you'll know when you look around you in the business, who around you and your colleagues are made of the right stuff. If you didn't know it, you're certainly going to find out fairly fast. You've probably already seen it over the last 13 weeks. We're going to be entering a challenging period. We're already in it. It couldn't get much more challenging than it is now. You have to have people around you who are going to be fighting with you in the trenches. They're going to have to, we talked earlier about rolling sleeves up. Your guys are going to need to do that. So you've got to ask yourself, what personality traits are you looking for in your people for the new world of work, as we keep calling it, for the recession? And I think you are going to have to look very quickly and carefully at those people, and you're probably going to need to make some fairly tough decisions pretty fast. Now, I don't want to get into too much, gloom and doom around that, but I think what I'm saying here, Howard.
I think you're right. Finding the people who've got the right stuff is really important, but then putting their personality traits, you mentioned earlier about building strengths, putting their personality traits, if I could say the word. I will do. And employ their strengths into the right areas in the marketplace is what starts to see you through that recession period. If people are working to their strengths and not sort of being managed by their weaknesses, then what you find that people deliver more. So if you've got people who are really good at BD, get them doing BD. If you've got people who are really good at doing delivery, get them doing the delivery side. What we can't afford to do is have people who are being managed by their weaknesses that absolutely overshadow their strengths. So we've got to really look at that. So when we start to recruit fresh talent, and we should be recruiting fresh talent during the recession period, it's looking for the right people that come into the business that can add things to the business instantly. And Paul and I always talk about getting the tactics and strategy right within the business. If you get the tactics right and the strategy right, it creates a rhythm in the business. Once you create that rhythm, new people coming in have to get on that rhythm and start to move to that rhythm, rather than a new person coming in, stopping the whole rhythm because they want to do something different and trying to change things. So it's find the right people and the right personality traits, get them doing the right parts of the job, and they can deliver their parts of the job. Okay. And then if we recruit new people, find the areas that we are weak in and recruit people into those areas where they are strong and you are weak, to create a far better combination of a team rather than just a team of individuals.
And I would add to this that you're looking now for people that are a correct cultural fit for you. So these are the guys that have got to reflect your own behaviors and values as leaders, as owners. And it's very important. You've got this brilliant opportunity, and Howard's made a really good point. And a lot of my clients are doing this at the moment. Believe it or not, we're actually recruiting. We're in the market. We're talking to people. We're employing new people. There's some good new talent out there right now. Some of the recruitment businesses that are your competitors have let go or are about to let go people that perhaps they shouldn't be letting go. And there'll be others, recruitment consultants, who will have made their decisions over the last 13, 14 weeks. They don't want to work for those employers any longer. They're not happy there. They probably weren't happy prior to the COVID crisis. And they're most definitely not happy now, having been treated, in their opinion, not particularly well during this lockdown. There are people out there that would be brilliant for your company. You should be talking to them. It's a great chance to enhance the quality of the people in your company. So in the same way that we're saying, have a good, strong look at the people that you've already got. Let's use them properly, as Howard's just said. Let's make sure that they're fit for purpose going forward, that they've got the right stuff. And if they haven't, you've got some tough decisions to make. But at the same time, why not take this opportunity to bring in people that are going to make a big difference in your organization? And you'll probably never have a better opportunity to get out there and find good quality people than you'll have over the next 2 to 3 months for sure. I think it's a good opportunity to, regenerate your business, reinvent the business in a sense. And the people that you bring in have to reflect those new values. Have a good, strong look at your mission statement. If you've got one, ask yourself, is this fit for purpose any longer? Does it fit with what I want from my business in this new world of work? Is it correct? And why not speak to your people, your people that you've already got, start discussing with them one-on-one and through questionnaires what it is they feel you need to do to change your business, whether those are small changes or large wholesale changes. What do they think? Why don't you engage with them, find out their thoughts, get their ideas, innovations? Because we know as leaders, we don't have the franchise on great ideas. We have some good ideas. We have some great ideas. Very often the best ideas for business change comes from the people that work with you and work closely with your candidates and clients. Engage them now. Have those conversations now. Bring them in. We use the word inclusive. And as a leader, you need to be inclusive. What a perfect opportunity now to start talking to our guys and understand what their views are regarding moving your business further forward.
I think some of that, the mission statement is really important. And I think we work quite a lot on clients' mission statements, and those people who've worked with us understand what we're talking about when we talk about what your mission statement actually says and what's it actually mean. Do people actually deliver your mission statements? Why do your staff deliver your mission statements? If your mission statement is things like such as, I want to be the number one recruitment agency doing this, that, and the other, etc. I want to be the number one of this, etc. That's all about you. when really in this moment in time in recession, it's not about you. It's all about your clients, and it's all about your candidates, and it's all about your consultants. So it's all about giving them the opportunity to move forward. So you may want to sort of look at your mission statement and see what it actually means and what it says to other people when they read that. And I think once we start to get to understand that, then we can start to think about the personalities that are coming into our business and the personalities that we need to keep within our business. As we start to get a more recession type market, which is a more client-led market, we need to be more client and candidate facing. And that means meeting up with clients, but obviously we can now do video interviews, video meetings, meetups, webinars, podcasts. So you need to have people that can carry off those type of situations and work in those type of ways. So it's all about having personalities within your business that can be client facing, can be forward facing. Yes, you will still have some people behind the scenes that are delivery people that might not have to be, but you've got to think about, you've got to go out there and win and create new business. Yes, you can create new business from your own current client base, but to survive properly, you have to get business from elsewhere and new business in there. So it's really important that you get the right personalities in your business. So the same question, Paul, as we talk about people strategy, give me some idea of what people strategies that you've put into place that have helped turn a business or help increase the productivity of a business.
Well, I'll tell you something. I'll add to what you said earlier, Howard, about having fun, enjoying work. If I think back to the times when I absolutely loved my job, every time I think of those people back in my old Alfred Marks days when I was running a branch in High Holborn for 5-6 years, and I think back to times at Office Angels and times in that company I mentioned earlier, where we were struggling and really working hard to save the business. When I think of those times, I think about how hard I laughed. I mean, I laughed so many times in a day, almost to the point of crying with laughter, because of the people I was working with. Despite the challenges, despite the issues, despite the worries and concerns, when I think back to some of those guys I work with, they still make me smile. And I could tell, we don't have the time, but I could recount a million stories about hilarious things. And I absolutely loved working with so many of those people. I mean, literally loved them. And I'm still incredibly good friends with so many people from the past. And even today, Howard, there's not a day that goes by when we and others that we work with don't talk and laugh together. And I think, work should be fun. It should be a giggle. And when you are thinking of taking on people or working with existing people, having fun, enjoying their company, getting to smile hard every day, laugh hard every day is really important. It's good for the soul. It's good for the spirit. And, regardless of whether the economy is tough or it's going well, we should love working with people that we surround ourselves by. And if that isn't the case, and as you said earlier, Howard, if there are people that bring you down, that make you miserable, that give off negative vibes, negative energy, I have one piece of brilliant advice for you. For God's sake, get rid of them. Life's too damn short to work with people that make you miserable. So number one point, surround yourself with great people who are positive minded and like you want to do well, but actually enjoy life and make you enjoy life, help you enjoy life. That's really important. I think when we look back to, how we're going to form teams, it's not just about ability. Ability is extremely important, of course. It is about getting those right behaviors and values around you so that you can have people who work and help you to develop the culture. Because frankly, if you have a happy family inside your four walls, that vibe, as Howard was saying, that starts moving out towards your clients and your candidates. They love working with positive people, and they will engage with positive, upbeat people and give you more and more business, particularly as Howard was talking about, when you engage with them much more frequently, being involved in meetings, virtual meetings. And I think that very positive vibe that you give out, both from your branding and from your personal contact with people internally and externally, creates a culture that is so engaging, people want to work with you.
I think it's quite interesting when I sort of looked at that and I looked at this, we talked about this question and I sort of thought, people strategy, what could I do about people strategy? And I started to think about Yeah, when I took over the London and South West division, so a huge sort of division of computer people, over half the business. Their management team had sort of, most of them had walked out on them. I'd been in the north, and I was now running most of the northern offices in computer people. We'd become the biggest billing area in the country, so we'd taken away their golden crown, etc. I think on the winners trip, out of the year I started, 9 out of the 10 that went on the winners trip were all from the south. You know, the year that I then went down to the south, it was the other way around. 9 out of 10 were from the north. So I walked into the London office almost as Beelzebub. I'd taken away their crown, and I'd sort of really taken away from what they wanted. And I sat out with the people and said, this is what I really want to sort of help you with. This is what I want to change, the people's strategy. And it was about their personality, their traits, and what have you. And I viewed it from a different view. I said, let's look at this from a client's point of view and how we can compete in the London market, the most competitive recruitment market in the world. I said, everyone sees recruiters as, at the time, retcons. And it was interesting that I hadn't come across the term retcon until I went to London. And I said, well, what is a retcon? It's a recruitment consultant. I said, well, it doesn't sound really great if you rec and con it. Just so we sound we're wrecking everything and we're conning everybody. It sounds appalling. And so I had a bit of a crusade to get rid of what I classed at the time in the sort of early 2000s as the fat not recruiter brigade. And it wasn't about getting rid of them out of the business. It was changing their mindset. And so what we did was, or what I did was, I started to sort of show them the difference between how they were doing recruitment and how they could be redoing recruitment, and that was slight and subtle changes, and how they portrayed themselves and presented themselves to the outer marketplace, what difference that would make with regards to their overall profitability and the overall money they were making. It was a long change and a long turnaround. It took me about 17 months, but I took the weekly book value on the contract from being 120k to almost 180k in that period. So a huge growth period, but it was all about looking at what our clients and candidates wanted, and then looking what the consultants wanted. And once they realized I was there for them and helping them to drive forward as a leader, they started to engage in the ideas that we had. And what we started to have, and I always say about we, because I always think it's the team environment that creates more ideas. And they would then start to come with me and bring ideas. But again, I still had the hard decisions to make, and I still had hard things to talk about. And I remember having a difficult conversation in front of the whole office as I laid out a new commission structure, which is never the best thing to be laying out, but we laid out the commission structure, and one of the big billers stood up and said, I've just looked at this, I'm going to lose money on this. And I said, if you really want to have this conversation in front of all these people, I'm happy to have this conversation, but what you'll find is that you'll lose the conversation, because what you're talking about is wrong, and how you're doing your business isn't conducive to making money. I can show you how to make money and how to go wrong. And he decided to take the conversation offline, and we had the conversation offline. 12 months later, when I rolled out the new commission structure, the same person stood up and said, I can tell you now, if it's the same as last year, the changes, we will make far more money. He showed me how to make so much money this year that I didn't think about. And where last year I thought the commission structure was disaster, it has been absolutely brilliant. So I think it's about getting into the hearts and minds of your people, find the people the right stuff. Some people you can change, some people you can't, and then it's delivering those people. And even in hard times, they'd lost all their management, they were going backwards, they were getting beaten in every single area of the business, changing them around and being supportive behind them and building relationship-based recruitment business, you can start to really grow a business.
And I would add, Howard, I think one of the things that you guys have got to make sure your people understand is this WIIFM. What's in it for me? Now, I mean, Howard's talked about looking at bonus plans, but I also think we've got to really explain what the career path will be for people in the business. What's in it for them? How do they get along in your expanding, developing business? And you've got to be creative about that. Where is the company going to be in 2 years, a year, 3 years' time? And what's in it for them? How can they develop? What are they going to get from working hard with you, being courageous, sharing the challenges ahead? Not too difficult. And, you need to be painting this very positive picture and how they're going to progress as the company grows. Because as we talked about earlier, hearts and minds are very, very important. this issue of engaging people isn't just about making it a great place to work in, and you lead that by exhibiting that behavior, but it's also about painting the future, making them understand that it will get better. It's going to get considerably better. Your business is going to gain market share. And when the business gains market share and you start to gain more profitability, this is what's in it for them. This is how they're going to develop and expand their experience, expand their careers. Why would they go work somewhere else when they have such a brilliant opportunity working for you in the near future and in the medium future? You may also want to start talking to them about things like EMI share option schemes. You know, I've got a number of clients who have been so impressed with the amazing commitment of their people during the last 3 months that we're now having conversations about setting up share option schemes to provide real equity opportunities for people in the business, the what's in it for me. Because a lot of my clients will unquestionably want to think about exit at some stage over the next 5-10 years. And they want their loyal people to benefit from that. So these are the times to have those conversations to make sure your guys truly understand that, you know, we're going to get beyond this short-term challenge and we're going to be looking at a much brighter future in the near future, and that they will benefit from that as time progresses.
So if we start to look at them, and that leads that we've addressed the office to a certain degree, and I think there's more that we can address within the office. But obviously the economy is the main thing that people fear, and they have this, you know, I think unwarranted fear that, you know, just because there's a recession on, that there is nothing to be made, there is no opportunity to make money, etc. So let's talk about the behaviors of what happens when, you know, the economy goes into recession, but also what happens when the market starts to come out of recession. You described it as the Nike swoosh earlier on. I've declined it as what I call a bathtub economy, where there's a steep fall across the bottom of the bath and then a quick uprise. Let's just hope it's the side of the bath and not the lengthways of the bath as that fall bit in the middle is. But, you know, all the economists are saying it will be a sharp fall, bit of a plateau, and then a sharp rise again. So what happens in, you know, the economies when it starts to act as it is now, Paul?
Well, firstly, can I explain to us Southerners that a bath is a bath? Just in the same way that a bus is a bus. So just to explain, in case people were struggling with that, Howard, I'll just explain that. The new economy, you know, what's it going to look like? You and I have worked through lots of different downturns. I mean, since 1976, since I started in the industry, I don't know, 4 or 5 recessions, and of course the banking crisis at the back end of the last decade, which, let's be honest, was a depression if it hadn't been for government, the banks bailing us out. And of course, this situation is arguably worse than the banking crisis. Not arguably, I think it is. So what can we expect? Well, you know, you and I have talked about this a lot. I think the complexion of the market, the economy, is not going to be dissimilar, despite the reasons for the calls in the downturn, to those that we've seen in the past. So we can definitely expect, and we talked about it, clients downsizing, and, you know, unemployment rising sharply. We know that's going to happen. At the same time, and we've just talked about it, companies, not just in the recruitment industry, but elsewhere, will be looking for fresh talent. You know, just because clients are downsizing does not mean necessarily they stop recruiting. As per the earlier conversation, they'll see it as an opportunity to recruit better quality people in their businesses. We will see that opportunity still arising. I think we're going to see, and I remember back in 1990, when I joined Office Angels as a branch manager, and my office was at, what was it? Number 20 Oxford Street. I was about 200 yards up from Tottenham Court Road Tube Station. And we used to have a policy, we would interview absolutely anybody that wandered into the office. So they'd tumble out of Tottenham Court Road Tube Station and up the stairs to our office. And during the recession, no word of a lie, we would have been interviewing about 100 candidates a week. I mean, it got to the point when we were drowning in candidates, to the extent that we couldn't pick up a phone, look for jobs, talk to clients, because we simply had back-to-back interviews. Now, do I think that that's likely to happen again? Yes, I think there's every chance that if you're not careful, you're going to drown in candidates. You need to be very careful about how much time you commit to people, who you're going to be speaking to. You're going to have to look at how you filter candidates. so your people are talking to candidates that we can assist. That doesn't mean you don't talk to people that we can't assist, but you need to manage your time extremely carefully. You can't be drawn into spending extended periods of time talking to people you're going to struggle helping. So I think one of the big issues of the recession is time management, how much time we spend with candidates, who we spend time with. And of course, there's technology out there, as you're well aware, guys, that will help you filter candidates. It's not a nice expression, I know that. But, let's be clear. We're in this business to make money. We're in the recruitment industry to place people in jobs. And I don't want to sound an awfully difficult, hard-nosed individual. I can't help it. But, frankly, we have to spend time with the people we can assist and not much time at all with those that we will struggle to assist. Doesn't mean we're rude to them, but we cannot have our consultants spending extended periods of time working on people they're not going to place. And that applies as well to the roles that we're not going to fill. So there'll be fewer jobs, but we need to be working very hard on the roles and the people that we can fill, that we can assist. I think we're going to see price wars, Howard. We've talked about this in previous webinars. Some of our competitors are going to be dropping prices, right?
I think you're right. I think price wars are going to happen. And I think the way I've looked at this before, we sort of talk solely on price, is I remember sort of walking into offices and my instant comment would be, if I invested the same pound last year, this year, would I be making more profit from that pound? So it wasn't just about looking at how can I increase my sales, it's how do I actually manage my business cost effectively. So I'd look at all the cost savings that I could make. Were they worth making cost savings? But I also looked at where I could invest. And you talked there about sort of technology that you could invest in. So I think there's lots of technology nowadays that we can invest in that will increase our recruitment performance. And what I mean by that is, if I could automate things that means my staff has more client-facing time, then I should, by sense, make more money. So there are certain things that need to be automated, maybe certain roles that need to be outsourced during times of recession, because you can get a better cost-effective way of doing that. I was speaking to a client yesterday talking about accountancy. They had a very expensive accountant working for them. And, for the accountant, what the accountant was doing, I could half that price and give them an accountancy company that would give them the same service, if not more. So there's lots of ways that you can make more money out of the same pound you invested last year, this year. It's then looking same at the same pound I've invested this year, how can I make more money out of it next year? So investing on things that give your consultants more airtime to your clients and your candidates are really important. But before you get to that price war situation, what you've got to understand is that during recession, when it becomes a client-led market rather than a candidate-led market, you need to spend time with clients that are worthy of your time. And we talked about this last week on the training webinar. If 20% of your clients create 8% of your profit, then 8% of your clients are presenting 20% of your profit. But those 8% of your clients are probably where you're spending 8% of your time. So you've got to start to think about what you can do with those clients, because if they're wasting too much time, you'd be better off doing new business development to find clients like the 20% clients that create 80% of your profit, because therefore you'll be able to convert more. And again, as we'll talk about this later on, I went into a business, I took them from doing 3 out of 10 placements a month to 7 out of 10 placements a month, simply by reducing the type of client that they worked with and getting rid of the clients that wasted their time. And price wars come into that. Clients that are always demanding a lower fee and clients that are always forcing you to lower your fee, are they really worth working with? And if agencies actually stopped working with those type of clients, then they have a choice. They either have to increase their fee or change the way they work with the marketplace. And I think because we've been so busy doing contingency work and competing with each other, and this is the big thing that we've got to get around each other. When people compete with each other, they compete to beat people. They compete to destroy people. If you're beating and destroying your competitors in the recruitment market, what you're doing is you are actually destroying your marketplace. If you're only the last person left, you might think, great, you're going to get all the cash, but are you really? So you've got to start thinking about your competitors as adversaries. And by having adversaries, you want them to be dealing with certain parts of the market. You want them to be dealing with it. I'd rather have my adversaries dealing with that 80% market that gives me 20% of my profit. They can waste their time whilst I'm dealing more with that 20% client that gives me 80% of my profit and growing that type of client base. So I'd never got into a price war. I would never entertain a price war. If the client was adamant that they wanted to drop their price because of the recession, etc., then I didn't want to work with the client. And I walked away, and I had set walk away points, and I walked away constantly from those type of clients. And yet during every recession, my business grew. Why? Because I was finding more clients that would engage with me properly, and that 20% to create 80% profit became bigger and bigger and bigger. So I think price wars, if you're going to get into a price war, walk away.
Yeah, and Howard, I would agree with you entirely. I think, look, you've got to find clients, and you've got them anyway, who truly value you. If they don't value you, the chances are they don't value their own people. The way they treat suppliers is often the way they treat their own people. So, you do have choices. I know it's difficult. We're in business. We want to make money, especially during challenging times. But if you're dealing with employers who truly do not value what you provide, then you have to make some tough choices. I think that a recessionary climate means that you've got to provide greater consultative services. It doesn't mean that we are all about chucking CVs at the cheapest rate. That isn't where we want to be. We've spent weeks and weeks and weeks talking about looking at additional services, providing different forms of technology to improve the services that we provide to our clients and candidates. We've talked a lot about getting closer. You've said it just again a moment ago, Howard, getting closer to clients, moving towards that trusted advisor positioning. None of those things should mean that we're dropping our charges, dropping our fee levels. We are all about providing better quality service. So you could argue that there's a lot more people on the market and fewer jobs, so clients will look to recruit directly themselves. But I would argue, based on my own experience of recessions, that actually the fact that clients become as deluged with candidates as we become means that they need to push that away. They want to use recruitment businesses that will help them find people quickly with the minimum of effort on their part. And therefore, actually providing higher levels of consultancy services to clients becomes even more important during a recessionary climate. I think the other thing that we're going to see, Howard, as we come into this period we've been saying it will definitely happen. There'll be an upturn, a very sharp upturn in the engagement of good old-fashioned temporary workers and, of course, contractors, because clients that are downsizing, that are losing people, will very quickly find, once the market starts to improve, that they need to bring in additional people, and they'll be reluctant or even find it very difficult to bring in permanent staff. So they will want short-term interims. And again, that will then lead to what we used to call temp to perms. This is a pattern that I've seen over and over again. The temp market starts fairly high during a recession, and then gradually, as the market improves, perms come back, temps become perm, and then we're back into a strong perm market. That's exactly what will happen over the next 6 to 9 months, I believe.
I think it's quite interesting. We're asking quite a number of questions from delegates this week, or attendees this week. And one of the questions was, is this the death of the high street recruitment type marketplace? And absolutely it's not. I think that type of marketplace will come back stronger than it has before. I think was asked another question as well, which I think is very right. As clients, that we look at, they were doing the same sort of things as what agencies that look at. There's an opportunity here to really think about, could you buy an agency or another agency in this marketplace to help build your business and work your business? And if I looked back at Adecco in 2008, when the recession was coming, they announced that they had $1 billion in their war chest across the globe to buy agencies. In the UK, I was brought to the office in London, and we suddenly announced that we brought Spring, Bednock and Clark, Modis, Jonathan Wren, and a couple of other agencies, and I inherited the spring business. And what I would always say is, if you're buying businesses and you're going to buy businesses in this marketplace, you have to do your due diligence on what you're buying and why you're buying it. Because although spring was a good purchase for the business, I remember inheriting the business on the Monday and going to visit Scotland, going to visit Edinburgh on George Street. Spring at one end of the office, end of the street, and CP at the other end, with in the Office Angels office.
Yeah, you nicked my office.
I did indeed. And as I walked into the spring office, I spent a morning in the spring office and had a long conversation. What they're doing, we've got 440 contractors out, and I was overjoyed. It's going really, really well, looking really good. I did have a big question mark because the vast majority of those contractors were in one company. Went to CP to see the CP guy, see what was going on, etc., and went back to Leeds. On the Friday, I had my management call, and my management call with my guy in Edinburgh was really quite worrying, because RBS had just cut 400 contractors, leaving us with 30 contractors in the whole business. So if you are going to buy a company and buy other agencies, and there's opportunities here, and this is what happens in economic times, you've got an opportunity to take market share. It's not all about going out and taking clients off other agencies. You can possibly find agencies that are worth buying, or at least joining together and maybe having a sort of a joint venture together on those type of fronts. But have a very, very good look under the bonnet, okay? Don't just look at the client list and think that's a gleaming client list. Look at the markets they're in. How badly affected they're going to be by the marketplace. Look at how the company is being run from a cost-effective point of view. Is it worth purchasing or not? All that glistens isn't gold sometimes. So I think there's lots of things that we can take out of, an economy changing. But to me, the most important thing is how you are perceived by your clients, and your candidates and your consultants are really important. Because if you look after your candidates and you look after your clients and your consultants, as an ecosystem, those three will look after each other. And if they look after each other, they will look after you as a business as whole.
And I would say, Howard, a couple of points. I think we've come up with the subject matter for another webinar, which is all about preparing your business to be sold and buying businesses. And you're right. I mean, there'll be plenty of opportunities to purchase other businesses coming up in the next 12 months. But you be very, very careful about what you're about to purchase. You're going to need to kick those tires pretty hard before you give money over. Perhaps I think it's a good subject that we should maybe visit in the next few weeks, because this is quite a deep subject matter. Preparing your own business and buying businesses.
I think the comment there, though, and I think what I was trying to allude to, it wasn't so much, yes, you can go out and buy businesses. Yeah. I think the comment is, if you look at your own business and you look at it now and said, if someone came in to buy my business now, what would they be buying? What is my business worth? And if you suddenly start to look at your business in that way, then all of a sudden you start to see the weaknesses within your businesses, things that would turn buyers off. If you then can start to turn those weaknesses round into strengths, it makes your business a very, very strong business. And once it becomes a strong business, obviously what happens? Your purchase price goes up. Therefore, the value that you're putting into your business starts to increase. So although, yes, you can go out and purchase businesses, people might be looking at your business as well and say, can I purchase that business? If you want to really think about it in that logical way, brilliant. Make your business something that somebody wants to buy, which means you have to have all your back office aligned, your front office aligned, your sales strategy aligned. And that's exactly what we've been talking about over the last 13 weeks, is getting everything aligned and everything running smoothly in your business so that it does come out of recession stronger and fitter than it went into lockdown. And if we can get that right, then all of a sudden the value of your business starts to increase. And if you do that over a period of time, okay, then you start to grow. So people become a little bit, I was going to use the word lazy, but I don't think that's quite the right word. I think during really good times, people become a little bit blasé about their business. And all of a sudden, yeah, we can afford to buy that. That's not a problem. We can afford to do this. That's not a problem. Yeah, it's not worth if that's not being done correctly. That's all right. We can let it slide because the business is running really smoothly. But when business starts to turn on a downturn and it becomes a bear market, your business needs to be in survival mode. And that means it needs to be as fit as it can be to survive. And that's getting everything correct and right within the business.
I mean, Howard, I just a couple of quick points. I would say, somebody asked the question, what's the one piece of advice you would give regarding managing a business through recession, or indeed any time? And I would say, get close to your clients. Get super, super close to your 20% you mentioned earlier. Get close to those clients. It's all about, you guys know this, it's all about relationships. So all about the depth of your relationships with clients and indeed candidates. And as we've been saying repeatedly, your own people, I would argue very strongly that your bond with your own people is perhaps more important than anything. But I absolutely, if I was you can ask me, what's the one piece of advice? Get close, develop deep relationships, because that's really the value of your business. It's those relationships that drive the profits.
And I think as we end on this sort of slide, as we come to an hour, the mountain that you now need to climb the mountain as a team, you have to be together. And your team, remember, is not just based on the people that you employ. It's the clients that you work with and the candidates that you engage with. And if you haven't got all of those people pushing up your mountain, that you're never going to get to the summit. You're never going to get to the top. So you've got to work really hard to do that. So as we bring this webinar to a close, we're still left with lots of questions that we've still not had to answer. Every time we put the advert out for this week we've got another 25 plus questions. So we're really happy with the questions that are coming in, and we're trying to answer them all as we go through these webinars from there. So I'd like to thank everybody for sending questions in. I'd also like to thank everybody who's sent us thank you messages, good luck messages, etc., etc. Paul and I are very touched by all the messages that we get. It is, to us, it is personal that we want to do the best that we can for everybody on these webinars. So by all means, send more questions in. We want to answer your questions, we want to work with your questions. And as Paul says, it's all about having fun and it's all about enjoying things. So the one thing I'd like to finish off, if Paul is going to actually write his recruitment memoirs, if he writes like he speaks, it is going to be the biggest book you've ever had. You'll have to buy it on Amazon Kindle because it will be the Amazon forest tree killer.
I'll tell you what, Howard, mate, it will make a great read, though. Anyone that's worked in recruitment for any period of time will know this. I've 44 years of stories. Some of them that, frankly, people's identities need to be covered over for fear that I'll be horribly sued. I've got some hugely funny stories to tell. So it'll be a great read. Make no mistake.
So ladies and gents, thank you very much for your attendance. It's been very much appreciated once again. If you've got any questions, by all means, fire them through to us. It'd be much appreciated. If you want to ask questions on the quiet outside of this, by all means, come and speak to Paul and I. We're happy to be your sounding boards and work from theirs. And if you've got anything else that to ask, feel free to call us at any time. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for your time.
Thanks,
That's the end of this week's webinars.
Have
Good
a good
luck.
week.
Enjoy your week.
Stay safe.